issue in maintenance management, Unit 12, sustainability and safety. So let's go to the next slide to understand the various objectives of today's sessions. So the first objective we have understand the close relationship between sustainability, safety and environmental issues and maintenance management. Objective number 2, explain the methodologies adopted to improve safety and environmental performance through maintenance management. Then objective number 3, strength and illustrate the correlations between maintenance and safety or environmental issue through the case studies. The next objective we have identify the element of sustainability and safe maintenance practices. Last one is recognize different type of sustainability maintenance strategies in organizations. So these are the objective of today's sessions. Moving to next slides. These are the content of today's sessions. First is introduction of sustainability or sustainable and safety management practice. Then we have to understand what are the different elements of sustainable and safe maintenance practices. Then next content we have the component of safety and environmental issues and their relations to the maintenance management. Then we have to understand what are the different techniques or maintenance techniques is used for safety and environmental improvement. And we have to understand what are the different types of maintenance strategies which is implemented to achieve sustainable and safe maintenance practices. The last one, it is the initiative to achieve sustainability development by understanding the overview of green maintenance. So these are the content of today's sessions. So let's understand the introductions of sustainable and safe maintenance practices. So before going to that particular topics, first we have understands how the sustainable manufacturing is achieved in case of sustainable development. So if you look out this particular image, it basically consists of three aspects of sustainable developments. The first one is environmentals. So it's viable natural environment. That means you have to sustainable naturals and build that kind of environment which leads towards higher side of sustainable development for the organizations. The next important part we have that known as economics. So under economics, you have to sufficient economics so that you have to go for sustainable economic development. And the third important part we have that is known as socials. So under socials, we are basically nurturing the community development. And under that one, you have to focus upon equitable social environments. So these are the three aspects of your sustainable development. The same three aspect is also applicable in case of sustainable manufacturing. So why sustainable manufacturing? The thing is that it is must address to achieve sustainable development in our societies as well as inside the organizations. So under maintenance process, we have already gone through these topics like ensuring the equipment availabilities, then dependabilities, higher side of safety during the operations and functional part of your maintenance management. And these are basically lead towards higher side of sustainable operations. I repeat, in case of equipment availabilities, dependabilities and safety lead towards sustainable operations. So moving to next point, for ensuring the proper maintenance, it is crucial for preserving the value of assets and attaining the desired level of performance. So that is why most of the company are nowadays implementing sustainable manufacturing that reduce the waste part and they will reduce the breakdown times. They are implementing various amount of maintenance strategies to achieve higher side of sustainable development inside the organizations. And as well as they'll also focus upon the desired level of performance, especially reference to sustainable manufacturing. So the objective behind this sustainable manufacturing is that they are basically bringing higher safety of safeties, sustainabilities together to eliminate the accident, waste, overall losses, improve operational excellence, and conduct business in a sustainable way to protect humans and natural resources, as well as they are also reduces the business environment footprints. So This topic is directly basic focus upon the first important aspect, that is elimination of accident to save large amount of humans. The next is waste minimizations, overall losses, improve operational excellence, and conduct that is known as business which protect the human lives, and they are also protect the natural resources and reduces the business environment footprint, especially reference to uh, those companies who are basically focused upon sustainable management. So this is the overview of this today's sessions, especially reference to sustainable manufacturing and how these are basically achieved by implementing environmental aspect, economic aspect, as well as the social aspect to achieve sustainable development. Moving to next ones, the next topics we have element of sustainable and safe maintenance practice. So under this particular practice, we are basically focused upon enhance the ability of operations of equipments and reduce the maintenance cost. This is the most important objective of maintenance practices. And researchers have proposed sustainable and safe management practices, which is recently introduced in case of maintenance management practices. So, what are the different aspects of sustainable management practices? The first important part is digital record keepings. The next one is prognostics tools. The next third one we have diagnostics tools. The fourth one we have technology monitoring equipment conditions. The fifth one we have environmental impact. The sixth one we have the known as manufacturabilities, and the last one we have the known as functionalities. So whenever you focus upon sustainable management, there basically consists of three number of elements. So let's understand what are the three number of elements. The first element we have long-term profits and economic growth. This is the most important objective of sustainability by many kind of or many type of organizations. The second element we have that is known as environmental sustainability. So we must take care about the inside as well as outside environment whenever you think about the sustainability and safe management practice, especially reference to manufacturing industries. And the third important part we have social sustainability. So through the involvement of various communities, you are also implementing sustainable developments. So these part basically include in case of recent era, especially reference to management practice. So if you goes to first point, digital record keepings. So especially reference to maintenance management departments is basically during the any kind of maintenance practices that basically go for large amount of documentation. So when you convert it, the documentation into digital record keeping, in that cases, huge amount of human hours should be saved. Similarly, if you go to prognostic tools, these are basically analysis or analyze tools, which is used to go for higher side of sustainable and safe management practices. The next is many companies recently implement the known as technology monitoring equipment condition, or which is simply known as condition-based monitoring, and they are also focused upon environmental impact. So that is why whenever you think about the sustainable practice, you must focus upon the basic sustainable management element, which includes the first one is long-term profit and economic growth. The second one is environmental sustainability, and the third one is known as social or societal sustainability. So let's understand the different sustainability practices, which is starting from digital record keeping, prognostics tools, diagnostics tools, technology monitor equipment conditions. The next one is environmental impact, manufacturabilities, and the last one is functionalities. So we'll discuss one by one. The first one is record keepings. So it is if you go to the point number one, every activities on equipments and its components should be documented. It is very important to keep this kind of database. This is the point number one. And if you go to point number two, documentation make easy to predict the machine health and other necessary action that is needed to be done. So the first important part is suppose the maintenance team is conducted any kind of maintenance practices on a specific equipment or machines. Each and every machine should be that is after the maintenance, they must go for documentation. That means the specification of machines, the manufacturer details, the operator details, the different the parameter of the equipments, and data must be kept in a particular database. This is the first point. And second point is that by the help of these documentations, you can predict the machine skills. So that you can implement any kind of maintenance strategies to improve the health and the functionality of that particular equipment. So this is all about the digital record keeping. So for digital record keepings, many industries have their own information technology departments. So they generate a simple clouds. All the data of machines, equipments, as well as department and sub-department data are directly go to that particular cloud. So whenever is required, you can simply download from the cloud and predict the different or analyze the different machines and equipment health so that you can implement any kind of maintenance related strategies to achieve higher side of sustainability. So if you go to the summary of the digital record keepings, it minimizes the that is known as physical mode of documentations, and most of the cases all the things starting from the paperwork are easily converted into digital modes. So less amount of humans involvement should be there. By the help of few amount of employees, you can go for higher set of digital record keepings. The next one we have that is known as prognostic tools. So if you go to point number 1, after the record keeping, this is the second that is known as practices. There are certain tools that deals with forecasting and predicting future component performance. This is point number 1. And if it goes to point number 2, the prognostics or detection tools work based on the early identification of wear, tear of machines, and faulty component and deterioration of equipments and components. And the third important point is that the formulation of prognostics tools are specified as the inadequate or deteriorate machines and the constant machine monitoring with the help of analyzing the behavior pattern of machines and gives the result before the salvage damage. So if you go to prognostics tools, these are known as detection tools. So these detection tools take the support of various amount of that is known as visuals or even that is known as visuals or sounds or CCTV surveillance. They are also take the support from various amount of sensor which is directly assigned to number of machines. So this detection tool can easily identify the different amount of that is known as machines, wear, tears, or maybe deteriorations of different components or equipment. And if you identify through the analysis, and if any kind of that is known as wear and tear should be happen to that particular machine or specific machines, immediately you go for that is known as decision makings. And before the decision makings, you have to go for that is known as a proper action plan so that you can easily understand and go for that is known as constant machine monitoring by the help of that is known as behavioral pattern of the machines. So if you go for the summary of prognostics tools, if you observe this particular flow diagrams, so every organization have their that is known as dynamic systems, and each dynamic system consists of number of that is known as machines and equipments. And during the that is known as production and operation management, if you find any kind of that is known as early identification of wear and tears, that should be properly diagnosed by the operators. And if required, you must go for that is known as a large amount of prognostic tool, which is also known as identification tools. The function of this identification tool, they can go for early identification of any kind of wear and tears, and then provide the that is known as decision schedule. Depending upon the decision schedule, the maintenance teams is made the action plan to the specific dynamic systems. So this is all about the prognostics tools, which is used commonly in various industries, especially reference to integrated organizations like steel plants. Moving to next one, the next one is diagnostic tools. So if you go to point number 1, the requirement of diagnostics tools rise when the prognostics tools fails to predict the failure of the component or the equipment and the defect occurs. This is point number 1. And if you go to point number 2, the tool works with the detection of defects, the region of defects, and the possible timing of defect occurrence. And third important point is most of the diagnostic tool work on the basis of time series models, and it helps in case of decision making. So the basic objective of this tool is that they can that is known as when the prognostic tool or identification tool is failed. These tools are basically used. So let's take an example of your that is known as diagnostic tools, and these diagnostic tools are basically equipped with large amount of sensor data, or sensor is collected the data. That data goes to the that is known as Internet of Things devices, and these IoT devices directly go to the IoT platforms. From here, the analytical data should be analyzed, and if required, they make the large amount of decision whether they go for repair, adjustment, or replacements. So, if you go to the diagnostics tools, it basically predict the failure of components and equipment and the defect occurs. And the most important part of diagnostic tool is that it is based upon the time series models. So the most important part of or the function of this diagnostic tool is that they are detecting the defects, and they'll also analyze the region of defects, and they also identify the time of defect occurrence. Maybe due to the higher side of bearing load, maybe that coupling is not properly aligned, or maybe it's happened due to the improper setting of the machines or equipment by the operators. So they are basically done through that is known as done through the information technology supports, where they can take the support from various sensor data, IoT devices, and by the help of computer they can easily analyze for decision making. So this is all about your diagnostic tools. The next important part we have that is known as technology monitoring equipment conditions. So if you go to point number 1, the technology used in monitoring equipment condition can help the processing both the tools like your prognostics and diagnostic tools. Or you can simply use this technology monitoring equipment condition is a hybrid or a combination of both prognostics and diagnostic tools. The next important part is that the technology monitor equations of data like vibration machineries, analysis of oil conditions, temperature of equipments, room temperatures for the that is known as functionality of machines or equipments, pressures and other factors concerned with the equipment health. So let's take an example of the same motor. If you rotate or if you go for switch on the motor and go for the large amount of that is known as times or run times, in that cases you have to take the factors like or equation of monitoring factors. The first one is temperature of the equipment that must be checked. The next important part is you have to check the bearing conditions, whether the chances of wear and tear should occur. And the next important part is, I told, so this technology monitoring equipment conditions, these are the tools basically used in the form of prognostics, or is a combination of both prognostic and diagnostic tools. So this is all about the monitoring equipment conditions, especially reference to the element of sustainability and safe management practices. So moving to next one, the next one is environmental that is known as impact. So in case of environmental impact, if you go to first point, in this particular point, highly competitive market, this is particular factor is very important to be considered. So it is not only nowadays, it is starting from the rapid industrialization in the country like India as well as in the state of Odisha, we are vastly focused upon environmental impacts. One of the important factors should be considered for sustainability and safe management practices. So under sustainable maintenance, it's very challenging while working with the competitors. So for example, if you take the cases of recent era in the state of Odisha, we have large amount of integrated steel plants are there. And the sustainable maintenance, or if you go to this kind of steel plant, they are not only focused upon environmental aspect, they are also focusing upon the sustainability developments by implementing various amount of sustainable maintenance to focus upon or to work with the more amount of competitors. So the next important part is that the production operation system works with the inputs of raw materials, output as the finishing goods or services. So here in case of environmental impact, we'll focus upon the entire production and operation systems, how the inputs are converted into desirable outputs, whether in the form of product or goods, we have to understand. And we have to understand the different aspect of your services also. The next important part is relatively the company has the common objective to go for profit maximizations, which can be done through the optimum maintenance strategies, and the sustainability development strategies is the best solution in the common days for maintenance management. So nowadays, company not only focus upon sustainable maintenance, they are also focused upon implementing optimum maintenance strategies for sustainable development in the form of maintenance management solutions. So this is all about the environmental impact, how if you take care about the environment, it provides various amount of output in the form of the maximized profit, higher side of sustainable development, and the sustainable maintenance practice should be observed inside the organizations. The next important part is that is known as manufacturing abilities. So in case of manufacturing abilities, it is directly that is known as in case of that is how the input are converted into outputs by the help of transformation process. So here we are basically focused upon the product that can be achieved through the different approaches or technique applied for production and operating systems. But some techniques are very important in case of manufacturabilities. The first important part is lean manufacturing. The next is agile manufacturing. We are also focused upon just-in-time systems. And if required, we must go for the known as automation of manufacturing systems. We are also adopting the Toyota production systems, and many companies are also using Kanban display board or signboards and other several that known as conventional approach. So all these approach technology can be formulated in the strategy whenever you think about the maintenance or sustainable maintenance management. So this is all about the productions or manufacturabilities. So manufacturabilities or your productivities are the interrelated word. But the thing is that under the production process, whenever you talk about how the production of the goods should be converted, so how the input is basically convert the outputs through the production and operation system, but you have to understand how the production process are basically concerned. So they are basically first, if you observe these particular figures, emission into the atmospheres. Then next they'll also go for the product developments. They'll also use large amount of land. The impact of on the environment, they also generate large amount of waste. They also generate sewages. They also that is known as use the materials as inputs or raw material or recycle raw materials as input for the production process. They also consume the water. They also consume the electricity or maybe energies. So by understanding the different aspect of input and output, we can easily go for the other alternative techniques, like as I told in case of manufacturability, that the company must adopt lean manufacturing, agile manufacturing, just in times, a higher side of automation in their systems. They must adopt the Toyota production systems. They'll also adopt the several conventional approach like Kanban, Pokayok systems, Kaizen systems in their existing plant, so that they can easily formulate these kind of approaches in their maintenance strategies to achieve sustainable maintenance practices in their organizations. So moving to next one. So last element of the sustainable and safe management practice, that is known as functionalities. So under functionality, the first point we have, that is function of equipment and the process is kept in the consideration in this particular factors. Second point is that the product are different from each other. Some of the product require more assistance, precision, and no compromise in terms of qualities. And if it goes to last point, if the sustainability of machines are being compromised, then the quality of product will be jeopardized, and the aim of organization to meet the functionalities. So here we will first important part is that the function of equipment and process is kept one of the most important factors. The next important factor are product are different from each other. Some product need large amount of support or assistance. Some product is very precision is taken, and some product do not compromise with qualities. So if you go for compromise with the qualities, in that cases, the sustainability should not be achieved, and you cannot achieve the aim of the organization to meet the functionalities. So for this functionality, you have to understand the application of maintenance process. So how this application of maintenance process will be started? The first important part is that you know change requests in case of machine functions or machines equipment or machine processes. So here we will focus upon that is known as conceptualizations, then conduct the plannings, then we provide the requirement that is for full of functionalities, then implementation, that means functionalities specializations will be done. Then we'll go for testings. If it is up to the levels, we'll go for acceptance of change, and the system release, or if it is not accepted, the system again will release the large amount of change requests. So in this way, higher side of the day known as assistance, decisions, and quality should be achieved under the functionality of equipment and the processes. So I repeat, in case of element of sustainabilities, the first important part we have to understand that is known as a digital of documents. I'm just the first one is digital recording keepings. The second one is prognostic tools. The third one we have diagnostics tools. The fourth one we have technology monitoring equipment conditions, and the fifth one we have environmental impact. The sixth one we have manufacturabilities, and the sixth one we have functionalities. The next topic we have the component of safety, environment issue related maintenance. So there are various issues is basically concerned with the safety and environment performance of a particular enterprise or organizations. So these are, first one is corporate objective and the goals. The second one we have document of process and equipments. The third one we have risk management. The fourth one we have change management. The fifth one we have human factors. The sixth one we have investigation of incidents, and the last one we have safety and environmental audits. So let's discuss one by one. The first one we have that is known as corporate objective and goals. So this is the most that is known as corporate objective is that common base. They will focus upon higher side of sustainability developments. The second one that is known as maximize profit or revenues. And third one they will focus upon that is known as safety and environment issues. And the last one they will focus upon social issues. So these are the common objective of the that is known as organizations, and most of the cases the top level of management that is known as define these objectives, and these are circulated among the middle as well as the functional level of organizations. So if you goes to, or if you goes through point number one, the top level of management organization is expected to clear the specify the corporate objectives and the goals. It would like to practice regarding the environment and safety assurance. Second one is that many times it is done through the wide publicized policy statements. So if you involve yourself in the organization for the first time, they'll provide the standard operating procedures or policies. And here in the standard operating procedure and policy, they strictly define the various operation and maintenance functions expected to dovetails them into the corporate safeties and environmental objectives. So if you go to the summary of the point one, in case of corporate objective and goals, these are defined by the top level of management, and it is directly that is known as specify or clearly specify the company objectives and goals. So for example, company want to maximize profit, company focus upon sustainable development, company focus upon the known as a higher side of the known as safety and environmental issues, and company want to specify the social activities through the CSR activities. And these are directly publicized whenever you think about the policy objectives that basically include the operations and maintenance functions, which is basically cooperated with the safety and environmental objectives. So this is all about the corporate objective and goals. Second one, we have documentation of process and equipments. So if you go to point number one, for the safety and environmental assurance of the companies, is the meticulous documentation of vital specification of the process, equipments in terms of their compliance with the safety and environmental standard, statutory and otherwise. Second one is this documentation can help either independently prepare or integrate into operations and maintenance manual of the plant process or equipments. So the most important part of whenever you think about the safety environmental issues, the company is directly provide the direction to many top level of authority so that they can meticulously go for documentation of all vital specifications of machines and equipments, and it is directly related to higher side of safety and environmental standards. So in case of environmental standard, for example, company want to go for ISO 14000. So ISO 40000 is simply define the environmental management systems. So whether your equipments are compliance with this kind of standard, these are simply documented by the different level of departments. Then this document can be, as I told, that is independently prepared or may be integrated into operational and maintenance manuals. So most of the cases, in common practices, many maintenance department they have their own rigorous maintenance manuals, or they have their own standard operating procedures for plant process or equipments. So these are under document of process and equipment. Moving to next one. The next one is risk management. So whenever you think about higher side of safety, environmental issue related to maintenance, there may be higher side of risks is involved. So risks involve or risk management involve using multidisciplinary knowledge and participation to identify all possible hazards and solution to keep their risks at acceptable levels. Point number two, the contribution of operations and maintenance in risk management is to contribute to analyze the process through input regarding the various hazards of operations and the maintenance processes. And the last point, as it may not be possible to eliminate the risks to zero levels, especially in the case of large complex process plant, it would require to scientifically analyze the risks involved and prepare the plan to mitigate them. So as far as concerned with the risk management, it is basically done with the multidisciplinary knowledge, and large amount of participation should be required to identify the possible hazards and their solutions so that you can accept the risks at a acceptable levels. This is point number one. The next important part is the contribution of operational and maintenance in the risk management is contribute to analyze the process through the inputs regarding various hazards of operations and maintenance process. For example, there is huge amount of risks involved. If you go for a large amount of or a higher side of the business, higher share maintenance like boiler in captive power plants, or maybe large amount of conveyor belt maintenance. So those who are involved in case of providing the maintenance work, they have to understand what are the hazard areas and what are the hazard solution to that to mitigate these kind of risks. And the next important part is if we go to third point, in that cases, most of the risks can be scientifically analyzed so that it can involve and prepare the plan to mitigate the risks or eliminate the risks. So first you have to understand or what are the different kind of the recognized component involved in case of the risk management framework. The first one is you have to identify the risks should be properly identification should be done. The second one is risk assessment should be done. Then after conducting several scientifically analyzed, the risk mitigation strategy should be prepared. Then go for that is one is securities control and measures should be done. And last one is monitor and reporting the risks and control to the next authorities. So these are the different component of risk management framework which is used inside the organizations to mitigate large amount of risks, and they can eliminate the possible hazard from their operation and maintenance management. The next one is change management. So under change management, we have point number one. In process plant, many environment and safety failures arise from the failure to manage change in the technology application systems. This is point number one. And point number two, hence the process safety guideline insists on well laid out procedures for change management. And the third important point we have that is maintenance activities are the most prominent examples of unknown change due to the unique nature each time So this requirement mainly apply to the maintenance functions. So the first important part, in case of process plant, for example, if you go for paper industry, these are the process plant. If you go for sugar industries, paper industries, sugar industries, cement industry are the best example of process plant. So in these kind of industries, if a failure will be occurs due to that is known as safety failures arise or failure due to managed change, they can go for that is known as technological application and system. This is point number one. And the process safety guidelines are provided by the maintenance department so that whenever the change in management will occur, they will strictly follow the standard operating procedures. Third important point is that the maintenance activities are most prominent. For example, unknown change due to the unique nature of times. So these requirements mainly apply to the maintenance functions. So what are the maintenance factors? Starting from the planning, executives, controllings, and the next one is eliminating the breakdowns or eliminating the that is known as equipment or machines, whether it is required in case of adjustment, replacement, or that is known as your repairs. Moving to next one, the next fact components we have that is known as human factors. So under human factors, here that is untrained or improperly placed worker will likely to commit mistakes which may lead to safety or environmental consequence. Apart from this, other human factors like attitudes, economics, work cultures have great bearings on the safety and environmental performance. So most of the cases in India, we observe how the unskilled workers are converted into semi-skills and how the semi-skilled workers are converted into skilled workers. But the thing that if you not provide adequate training to the unskilled workers, this may lead to a higher side of safeties, especially reference to environmental consequence. So in that cases, you have to try to eliminate the attitude, the economics, the work cultures, which directly impact upon the safety and environmental performance. So you have to take care about attitude, economics, and work cultures. So that is why company are nowadays implementing that is known as various facilities to to enhance the work culture among various departments as well as sub departments to eliminate the large amount of that is known as known and unknown committed mistakes done by the unskilled workers. The next important component we have investigation of incidents. So there is requirement a statutory otherwise intensely investigated incidents so that underlying causes can be find out and corrective action for the future improvement can be prescribed. So the role of operation and maintenance personnel are important in such investigation as they have to provide the corrective sequence of activities. So if any kind of the erroneous mistake was happens, not only the department but also other departments also involved, those who are related to the previous department, they must go for investigating the entire issues and provide the correct sequence of activities so that this investigation should be done in a rectified manner, and these are basically taken as a course of action for the future improvement if this kind of incidents happen inside the organizations, especially reference to maintenance related incidents. The last component we have that is known as safety and environmental audits. So audit it is that is known as investigating procedures mainly to identify the financial asset or the asset management by the company side. So it is also done in case of safety and environmental point of views. So that is why on every financial years or every that is year, the company conduct that is known as audit for safety and environmental that is known as issues. So audit are mainly to identify whether the existing systems, techniques, and procedures comply with the stated and required standard and suggest improvement whether required. And maintenance executives is an important team member of safety and environmental audit teams in many process plants. So it is the duty of that is maintenance managers, maintenance engineers, maintenance executives. They must involve in the safety audit to comply with the safety and environmental audit teams in process plant so that the systems, the technique and procedures should be comply with various international standards. For example, product related audit, they must comply with ISO 9000 standards. The next is occupational health related audit, they must comply with ISO 18000. The next is food and beverage audit, they must comply with that is known as ISO 22000. If they go for environmental audit, they must comply with ISO 14000. So these are the different international standard which required to suggest the improvement if required inside the organization for auditing the safety and environmental issue related to maintenance. So how the safety audit should be conducted? First important part is that determine the audit scope and objectives. First one. The second one, we have conduct the audit and review the documentations and collect the evidence. The third one, we have observed the work practices and identify the hazard and risks. The fourth one, we have determined the control and measures to improve the health and safety of employees. The last one, we have the publish the result of safety and audits. So these are the different number of steps which is under how to conduct the safety audit in your organizations. Moving to next one. The next topic we have that is known as maintenance technique for safety and environmental improvements. So how these techniques will help to achieve higher side of reliability and safety, especially reference to the maintenance of flows or especially reference to the maintenance management. The first important function of this techniques for safety and environmental improvement is that the maintenance management is ensure the plant equipment availabilities. This is that is known as primary function of maintenance management departments. But if you go for the requirement of the necessities, also provide maximum reliability and safety to that particular department. And the maintenance management need to integrate the techniques to improve safety and environmental aspect of operation and maintenance of plant equipment simultaneously. So the first important part is what are the different that is known as steps or that is known as parameter basically involved in case of your maintenance technique for safety and environmental improvement. The first important part we have classification of plant and equipments, then preventive and predictive maintenance schedulings, then shutdown maintenance plannings, communication between maintenance and other departments, and the last one is maintenance trainings. So by combining these that is known as 5 parameter, you can easily implement the maintenance technique to improve safety and environmental that is known as issues inside the organizations. So let's start. The first one is classification of plant and equipments. So here the plant and that is known as equipment should be classified on the basis of continuous that is known as productions or that is known as most of the, if you go for the type of plant or classification of plant, they directly depend upon the productions. So we have 4 type of the known plants are there. One is continuous production plants, mass production plants, batch production plant, or jobs of production plants. So these are basically done in case of production operation volume versus your product varieties. And in case of equipments, this is we have already discussed the depending upon the criticalities, the equipments are known as classified. That is highly criticals, that is moderate criticals, or low criticalities, or that is known as nil criticalities. So if you goes to point number 1, it is normally need for the maintenance management functions to classify the equipment into various categories so that resource allocation in the form of man, machine, and material allocations can be facilitated according to their criticalities. And second point is that the factorization methods like your continuous, mass, batch, or jobs of production sometimes use the rank of equipment in the term of the criticalities, as I told. And apart from the conventional board factors of operational criticalities, the maintenance intensiveness or quality of product, it is emphasized the safety and environmental factors is also considered in such classifications. So as I told, in case of plant classification, we basically required that is depend upon the production volumes and product varieties. But in case of equipment classification, should be done upon the that is known as rank factors, first one, and second factor is that is known as operational criticalities, or in case of quality of products. So these few amount of parameters should be considered in case of classification of equipments. And if you go for sub factors under this category, could be accidental potential, servities, emission of pollutants, extent of exposures of human elements to the equipments. So these soft factors are also considered. For example, the accident potentials, emission pollutants, then extent to exposure of the human element to the equipment. These are the best example of your soft criteria, which is also considered in case of plant classification or equipment classifications. Moving to next point. The next point we have that is known as preventive and predictive maintenance schedules. So if you goes to the fundamental concept of preventive maintenance, they are basically proposed upon advanced technologies, training the teams, conduct regular inspections, keep detailed records or documentation to be done, prioritize your assets, stay on the schedules, track the inventories, and last one is avoid the over maintenance. So these are the key that is known as term is basically include in case of preventive maintenance. Similarly, if you go for predictive maintenance, they are basically go for recover revenues. This is the first important objectives. Smart replacements, decrease plant maintenance, Internet of Things basically used to collect large set of data on machines or equipments, decrease service loss, lower side of leaks, improve workforce through the trainings, and large amount of asset availability for the known as operation or functionality of machines and equipments. So by combining this preventive and predictive maintenance schedulings, if you go for point number one, regular checklists and preventive maintenance schedules should be include important safety and environmental checkpoints. So whenever you conduct preventive or predictive maintenance, you must include the safety and environment checkpoints, just like the temperatures, the wear tears, the load factors, the next is the noise factors, the next is the contamination of oil in the gearboxes. These are the few example of checklists should be done under the preventive and predictive maintenance. Second point is that preventive maintenance is often supported by instrument-oriented measurements. These are called as condition monitoring. So what are the different instrument-oriented measurement? They are basically use large amount of sensors, Wi-Fi sensors, database, and IoT supports to go for higher side of condition monitoring, or that is known as continuous condition monitoring should be done on whenever you implement the preventive maintenance. Last point, many of the instruments can be used dual purpose techniques. For example, thermography can be used in case of identify the insulation of wear and thermal breakdown in higher temperature performance like furnaces. And similar thermography is also used in case of condition monitorings of various temperature also. So depending upon the consequence of implementation of preventive and predictive maintenance, you can use large amount of condition monitoring. So automatically the safety and environmental improvement should be done by the organizations. The next techniques we have that is known as shutdown maintenance planning. So if you go for the shutdown maintenance planning, you have to understand how the shutdown maintenance is work. The first important point is setting the scope. Second one is work planning should be done, scheduling everything, shutting down the operations, take review of entire process. So by combining these 5 number of steps, starting from the setting of scope, work planning, scheduling everything, shutting down the operations, take review of entire process, you can easily go for the shutdown maintenance work. So if you go to the second step like work planning in case of shutdown maintenance planning. So long shutdown for annual turnovers or turnaround and significant overall are essential for many process plant and heavier and complex equipments. So the next important part is that due to the tight schedule under the such shutdowns maintenance is executed, there are many possibility of compromise on safety and environmental features and standards. Hence, in the planning process, such as activity must be meticulously includes step required to ensure safety and standard or environmental standards. So, as you know, in case of shutdown maintenance, is very that is known as cost large amount of capital investment, and it is directly influence the production process. So, whenever they go for shutdown maintenance plannings, they have a tight schedule. So within the tight schedule, they will given a time period, and within the time period, they have to compromise in case of safety or environmental standard. But the thing is that Whenever you go for planning the process, in that planning the process, you have to meticulously include the different steps to ensure safety and environmental standard. For example, a operator is simply tightening the outer board of boilers. So if the person is neglect for tightening the board, in that cases, whenever you go for operational activities, in that cases, it causes large amounts of damage. So due to that damage, company must go for a long shutdown, annual turnaround for repairing this kind of equipments. So you have to take care about or ensure about the safety and environmental standard whenever you go for that is shutdown maintenance plannings. Moving to next one. The next one is communication between the maintenance and other departments. So previously what happens, there are large amount of barrier between department or interrelated department, but nowadays, especially reference to integrated organization, they don't have that barriers. They easily communicate between one department to other department. The same pattern or same similarly when they communicate, the maintenance department is communicate to other department, they must ensure about the safety and environmental hazards. This is the first point. And the next important part is that if they provide any improper communications, they simply there are many kind of hazards and that miscommunication should be occurs. They directly impact upon the organizations, especially applies to production and operation management. And proper information like logbook entries, work order systems, work permit systems, lockout systems, in case of electric hazards are some of the requirement to ensure communications. So if you go for that is known as breakdown maintenance of a transformer. So in that cases you have to maintain several checklists, especially reference to improve safety and environmental improvement. Similarly, if you go for that is known as furnace maintenance work or furnace breakdown work, in that cases you have to go for that is known as large amount of SOPs. And these SOPs are basically ensure the first one is log entries, work order systems, work permit systems, lockout systems. These are essential to communicate to other departments so that they can save large amount of human lives, as well as they also focus upon the impact or reduce the impact of environmental improvement inside the organization whenever they implement the various maintenance techniques. So if you take the cases of collaboration with other departments, what are the major benefits? The benefits are shared goals. The second one is cross-functional teams should be there. Communication channel should be formed. Knowledge sharings. The next is breaking the silos. That means there is no barrier between maintenance department and other department. They can easily communicate regarding the hazards or any kind of unsafety should be occurs. And the next one is accountability and ownership should be done among the departments. So these are the collaborating with other department benefits of these particular systems. Moving to next one. The next topic we have that is known as maintenance training. So here what will happens? All maintenance personnel working in the plant facilities should be trained to understand the process and the mechanical hazards. The training should be include mechanical skills, the mechanical theories on the job, apprenticeship trainings, safe work practice, specialized craft training should be done. And maintenance staff often forget a period, thus the company often lose valuable work information. The technique useful under the such circumstances, which include refresh, retrain of all staffs, then use of incident investigation trainings. The next is publicity campaign on safety, close supervision of new staff, continuous updating of maintenance instruments, safety compliance audits, counseling properly performing staffs. So these are the different techniques basically used in case of maintenance trainings. So why maintenance training is most important part? To understand the process and to understand the mechanical hazard. This is point number one. And under the maintenance trainings, the company provide mechanical skill training, then theory, on-job trainings. There also includes apprenticeship training, safe work practice, and specialized craft training should be done under the maintenance trainings. And what are the different techniques used? The use are the first one is refresh, retrain of all staffs, use incident investigation in trainings, publicity campaign on safety, close supervision of new staff, continuous updating of maintenance instruments, safety compliance audit, counseling poorly performing staffs. So these are the techniques is basically included in case of maintenance trainings. So apart from these trainings, there are other training basically improve the maintenance skills among the worker. The first one is that you must review job descriptions. Second one is identify the critical process. Third one is identify the critical asset. Fourth one is identify the associate skill required. Fifth one is identify recurring equipment issues. And sixth one is examine the failure codes and RFOs report for the operation activities. So these six number of training assessments should be needed in case of maintenance training so that they can upgrade their skill in various areas like mechanical skill should be upgraded, the safety work practice should be updated, the specialized craft training should be updated. And it is the duty of middle level of management, they must go for publicity campaign on various safety and environmental issues. So that is why if you go to that is known as PSU companies or in case of private companies, they rapidly source the publicity campaigns, specially reference to improve safety and environmental issues. The next one is type of maintenance strategies. So under the maintenance strategy carried out in two manners. The one is plan maintenance, one other is unplanned maintenance. So your plan strategy are predetermined on the basis of daily maintenance, weekly maintenance, monthly maintenance activities or annual activities, which include cleanings, equipments, maybe housekeeping of entire equipment. The equipment floor also includes. But in case of unplanned strategies, which is done on the emergency basis, just like a breakdown, when the fault is basically arise. So if you go to the that is known as a fundamental concept of maintenance strategies, we have the four type of maintenance strategy are there. The first one is corrective maintenance. The second one is preventive maintenance. The third one is predictive maintenance, and the last one is condition-based maintenance. So we'll discuss one by one in case of corrective maintenance, preventive maintenance, predictive maintenance, and the last one is condition-based maintenance. So in case of the corrective maintenance, it is necessary maintenance which is done subsequently as soon as the machine breakdown and reflected as the state that can affect the manufacturing of the product. So corrective maintenance should be done as early as possible so that the machine functionality should be immediately achieved and which is be ready for the manufacturing of product. So this strategy cover the activities which involve first one is replacement of defects, component or repairing the equipments. So most of the cases they simply go for replacement of component which save large amount of time rather than go for repairing that require large, so the less replacement required less amount of time but repairing required large amount of time. So rather than they go for repairing of equipment, they simply go for replacement of different defect equipment. The second one we have preventive maintenance. So it is used to cover the limitation of corrective maintenance by reducing the number of malfunction or failure incidents or any other case of emergencies. So here under the maintenance strategy, the preventive maintenance strategy is an approach where the time plan is ready for maintenance, that is a regular scheduled maintenance with a specific time interval for every machine. They must go for day-to-day plannings. They must go for that is on weekly basis, or in some cases they must go for that is known as monthly maintenance plannings, depending upon the that is known as functionality of machines. So these are the basic type of that is known as maintenance. One is preventive maintenance, another is corrective. But if you compare between this classification of maintenance, the preventive maintenance which includes time-based. Second one is failure findings. Preventive maintenance is that is known as risk-based. It is also include the condition-based monitorings, and the last one it is also include the predictive maintenance. But in case of corrective maintenance, it is done in case of emergencies arise, or if maybe that is not different. That means the equipment or machine may be that is damaged or that must be need repairment or replacements. Moving to next one. The next one is that is known as predictive maintenance. So predictive maintenance is used to monitor and measure the performance and health of the component of machines. So before that is known as any kind of uncertainty will be arise in the equipment and machines. In that cases, the preventive maintenance will increase the health and the safety of the machines to ready for higher set of functionalities in case of production and operation management. So here the predictive strategy is used to monitor the condition of the component or equipment, help in predicting the status of the equipment in near futures and therefore making better decisions. So let's understand how this next one is condition-based maintenance. It is used when there is a change in the external or internal environment of the machines, which ultimately affect the performance. So depending upon the consequence of internal as well as external factors, in some cases it is need to go for condition-based monitoring. That means meticulously you must go for monitoring the machines. So the main that is known as ground on which the maintenance strategy is applied. Any kind of alteration happens in the condition of the machine, an initiative to achieve sustainable development through the green maintenance. So the first important part is that they must go for determine the baseline standards, install the sensors, monitor conditions, collect and monitor the data. The next one is identify the conditional data anomalies and create the corrective action plan work order. And finally, they go for perform the corrective maintenance, whether they go for repair, adjust or replacements. Moving to next one. The next one is that is known as green. Okay, thank you.